Let's shine the spotlight on another Race to a Million team member. Pleased as punch to have Mr. Peter Grauer sitting here with us today. Peter is a proud member of Team Matrix, but also a well-known historian in the region, published author, and man about town. Peter, long resume, starting in the surveying industry, as I understand it.
That's right, Dean. I was born and raised in Revelstoke, and worked on the dams up in the Columbia River at Mica Creek and places like that as a surveyor. Came to Kamloops and started working for engineering companies. Became manager for the city of Kamloops for a number of years. Formed my own consulting company in the late 90s, and at that time reassessed what I was doing with my life, and said, you know, what is it that I really want to do? And so at that time, I got into a number of different things that have kind of consumed me since that time.
And we're talking history. You're a real history buff.
Once I became my own, started my own business, I put aside one of the things that I wanted to do to focus on, and there was a number of things, and one of them was to start doing research for writing history. Right.
Now, your first book is called Interred with Their Bones. When did that book come out, Peter?
That book came out in 2005, and or 2006. I'm sorry.
Okay.
And it's now in its fourth printing.
Wow. Is that kind of surprising to you?
Yes, because I just wanted to get it out, to get the story told.
Okay.
And I wasn't expecting the degree of recognition that I ended up getting on it.
Why don't we share what the story is all about? A lot of people in the Kamloops region know the name Billy Miner. For folks that maybe are just being introduced to it, what is Interred with Their Bones about?
Well, people often ask me that haven't read the book, why did you write about Bill Miner? He's nothing but a second-rate American inept robber that spent 33 years of his life in San Quentin before he even came to Kamloops.
Wow.
What socially redeeming function does he play in the history of British Columbia? Well, I like to respond by saying that Bill Miner's the vehicle for me to tell the story about what life was really like in British Columbia 100 years ago.
And that's kind of the time frame we're looking at, late 1800s?
No, it's about 1905.
Okay.
In 1903 to 1907. But we have the railway and we have steam engines. However, everything else was governed by the horse.
Okay.
Or walking. And so it was a different pace of life altogether.
And what a transitional time it was in the world of transportation. You know, the steam engines were coming in, the rail lines were there. You know, a guy named Henry Ford was just bringing a car into the
Bill
world.
Miner ran into his first automobile in Chilliwack in 1904, right after he had finished robbing the train down there. He saw this first vehicle that had come across the border from Bellingham.
Wow.
So he's a symbol of the change from the frontier society into modern times. I found how intimately connected the Bill Miner story was with so many of the founding families of British Columbia.
Okay.
So it didn't matter where I went after the book was published. There was people coming from Mount Lehman, from Mission, from Kamloops, of course, and Princeton, and all of these different places saying, that woman that you were talking about in the book, that was my grandmother.
Wow.
Or somebody else will come up to me and say, that was my uncle, and he did a sketch of Bill Miner, and this is the sketch that he did. So he was a rather inept American bandit that actually contributed nothing to our economy or anything like that. However, what he did do was connect people today, okay, to what the world was like 100 years ago. And because it makes them remember their ancestors, makes them remember their founding families and so on, it connects them with our heritage here in British Columbia.
And for all the bad things that he did, and make no mistake about it, he wasn't a real nice person in the eyes of the law. he is, as you say, bringing history alive, and he's one of those colorful characters that makes us want to dig into our past a little bit more.
That's true. Unfortunately, our textbooks in school were all formed and written and printed in Eastern Canada.
Okay.
You know, in TO, Toronto and Montreal and places like that. I like to tell about one of the textbooks that I found that were supposed to teach Canadian history. And when you look at the table of contents, everything was Central and Eastern Canada except one chapter.
Right.
And that one chapter was on British Columbia, but it was on the Haida Indians. So as far as anybody was concerned that consulted that textbook in school with regards to what British Columbia was all about, it was nothing but the Haida Indians.
It was up to the Rocky Mountains, then out to the Queen Charlotte Islands. www.billminer.ca. If you're a history buff, you got to go check out this guy's website. Peter Grauer, just a real pleasure to have you in today.
Yep.
We'll talk down the road about some of the stuff going on with your mastermind group and Team Matrix and the Race to a Million and all those other things. But in the meantime, thanks for finding some time to share some information with us.
Thank you, Dean. It's been a pleasure to be here. I hope I get the word out on BC history.
Well, we're looking forward to seeing your next book. Peter Grauer from Team Matrix has been our guest today as we shine the spotlight on another Race to a Million participant.